All right. We'll go ahead and get started. We'll start with the chamber report. Troy, you there?
Yes, I was screwing around playing with the filters.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, well, since I would rather you
Right?
see, can you hear me okay?
You can. Yep.
All right, well, good evening. Hello, Mayor, City Council, and City staff. Um, Joining you tonight, I've got some slides because I'd rather you see slides than my face. So I'm going to share screen right now and get into it and go fast because I'm so excited to hear from Somas. Just starting out with the pedestrian counts for the previous month. You can see here this blue line was this month. Previous month was the orange, and previous year is the green. So 3 out of 5 months we have been down over the previous year. April we were up a bit. January we were incredibly up, which we've been coasting on that for the first 5 months of the year. But this is about a 6 to 8% decrease in overall pedestrian traffic downtown compared to last year. But as you can see, the weather pretty much on par with previous years as far as what that was like. And then if you look at, again, you can see April, we were up a bit, the gold down a bit in May. But still about 8 to 6% up for the overall year. This past weekend kicked off the first weekend of the expanded Recreation Ambassador Program. And I wanted to share this Ambassador Weekend report. We are putting these into the Bavarian Bulletin every Monday. And we also switched the Bavarian Bulletin from a Friday to a Monday distribution and changed. It's now kind of looking ahead at the week, but also recapping the weekend. And so these are in there every day, every Monday. The amount of recreation interactions that they've had, really good. Down here, you'll see Selby. Local respondents had heard of the free river shuttle by word of mouth, but we still have some work to do on out-of-towners, which we're happy to help with that. And then moving on, happy to announce that Visit Chelan County, I worked with Jerry there, and they were able to get funding to expand the ambassador program to the county. And so they are starting with Entiat Valley. So this summer there will be an ambassador program, not only in Leavenworth, but in Entiat, 3 trailheads there. And then they have 3 other trailheads identified in the Wenatchee kind of Cashmere area that they want to do as sort of their phase 2. So good news on that. Next, just to share with you that we just published a member service directory. We've never done this. It's kind of a stripped down version of our destination guide, but it is really a tool if you want to shop local and support other chamber businesses. This we are having printed and they will be distributed around the 98826 area code and will be available for anyone to share at their businesses if they like. And also we've been working on the map, but there's a typo I see in it. So I'm going to move real quickly off this before you guys see it. And so we're just putting the finishing touches on this. We'll have it. It's on the map part. So I'm just going to delete that or just move it off to the side. There we go. Now it's gone. And this, but the backside all has this Give a Schnitzel stuff with some really good tips and some good thumbnails. I'm sorry, not thumbnails, QR codes. To get people more information on like the DART, the free shuttle service, all of that. So people can be better informed this year. And we're going to have the ambassadors have those at the put-in locations, as well as having them on A-frame signs that people can see. All right. And then we just started again our carvings for causes. And we have 5 beautiful carvings this year that will be around town, and you can bid on them until July 31st. We've actually already had 3 bids, but I think somebody in this crowd tonight, they need a bear in a canoe or a cute little fox, right? All the proceeds that we collect from this, when it all comes down and the bids are all in, this year we picked Leavenworth Mountain Association, LMA, to assist them with human waste mitigation, which is going to be a big problem this year, especially in the enchantments. And also Chelan County Mountain Rescue, the nonprofit group that is always in need of funding for the amazing work that they do as well. And then I just wanted to also note that in light of the recent tragedy that happened with those 3 little girls, immediately when we found out about that, we paused all assets that were promoting hiking and things like that, just to not look tone deaf to the tragedy. And that is still turned off right now and paused. So we're not sending out any imagery of hiking trails or things like that in any of the advertising or social media posts. So I just wanted you all to know that. And that concludes my update for y'all.
Any questions? All right. Well, thank you, Troy.
You're welcome.
All right. We're ready then for our main event. So who's going to introduce them?
I'm happy to.
You are. Okay, go ahead.
As the idea of Holly and Paul is here from SOMAS. They're just going to walk us through where we're currently at the project. Actually, I'll let them tell you what they're going to talk about. But we're glad to have them here tonight. Great. Yeah, so my name is Holly Williams, and I'm the project manager on this project and with SOMAS. Those that aren't familiar, we're a multidisciplinary firm that specializes in projects, placemaking downtown projects just like this one. And before I go on, I'll let Paul introduce himself.
My name is Paul Fusel. I'm a senior urban designer assisting Holly and the team, and also a facilitator, and we're super excited to be here today. This is a great update. It's a milestone for us too.
Yeah, he beat me too, actually.
Yeah, sorry.
No, we want to express how excited we are about this project. You know that it's a special project for you all, but we want to relay how special it is to us. As I mentioned before, we do a lot of specialty downtown projects like this, but this one's just extraordinary, and we thank you guys for inviting us along the ride and being part of the team. So. Apologize, I'm gonna have to use my slides here, but
Here we works.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
yeah, this is great. Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, Paul and I are gonna be tag teaming this presentation, so you don't have to listen to me the whole time. But we have about 30 minutes or so planned. We have a lot of information that we want to go through. We're gonna touch probably light on everything, because there's so much to share. But make note if we want to make sure that we're leaving enough time at the end to have some, conversation, answer questions. And today is an update. This is our first opportunity to get you all caught up on progress that we've made. We've been working on this project since last fall, and so the purpose, I would say, today is to inform and haven't met with yet. And so, no, at this point, we're not looking for any decisions to be made or anything, but just want to give a status update and then do their thoughts. And you also feel free to interrupt us along the way. As I mentioned, today's a project update. I'll cover the scope as far as what our approach is, and then as far as the deliverables, it's a 10% design for this first phase. And it's really to do the investigation aspect of it and, vet the design along the way with some, some reality to it. And I'll talk a little more about that. Have a nice concrete design vision to then move by the side. I'll touch on the schedule, our 10% design approach in progress, the stakeholder and public engagement that we've done to this point, and next steps and that kind of management. So I'll walk through the schedule here. I know that this is kind of a lot of information, especially if this is the first time that you're looking at it. So I'll kind of try to orient yourselves a little bit. Down the middle here is, in the gray, is the months. As I mentioned, we started in October and taking it through to the end of this year. On the top part of this design approach are the design tasks. And then you'll see concurrently at the bottom, we are, approaching stakeholder and public outreach, concurrently, which is why we've set the schedule up, the way that it is. And as I mentioned, part of this process was to really dig, deep into the investigation part of it. So that meant a true survey, geotech information, arborist, existing utilities, which isn't always their approach for children's design, but we wanted to make sure that with this conceptual design, it's based on some real meat and truth grounding. So then that saves effort as we move forward because we're doing it based on reality, the design. And then we're also reducing those opportunities to have to redesign once those things are done for the design. So we're midway through the design process. We're at this point in 10% of design, this investigation part has been completed. And then down below for the public and stakeholder engagement, had some really great discussions with city staff, maintenance has been a part of that, which has been really great input. The downtown steering committee, we've had 2 touch points. We had the person property and business owner meeting where the property owners specifically along Front Street were invited, so we would have those great one-on-one conversations with what their operational needs look like. And then here we are today for the first council update. We'll have another one towards the end of the process. And then actually just the last couple of weeks, or a couple of weeks ago, we were at the community. We'll talk about that. And I see some familiar faces from that.
So we thought we'd start by again recognizing and celebrating the community's bold vision, starting in the 1960s with life, right? Leavenworth improvements for everyone. And by the end of that decade, at least five storefronts had already been reclad towards the Bavarian Alpine theme. And then going into the master plan, which has manifested itself in so many different ways, has been a huge success. That bold vision was in the 2000s. And then from there, the street closure, which was starting in the 2020s, and that was really an initial reaction to COVID, but took a leap of faith and a bold vision of actually closing off the street for the safety of visitors, and then also for the economics of the place that happened throughout the nation, where restaurants and other venues really they couldn't contain themselves inside a closed space. And then for the council to move that forward a few years later into a permanent closure, which leads us to today's kind of next story around the bold vision of turning the street into a pedestrian plaza that also includes the downtown park. So these images are just images of various different European street locations, plaza locations, and we are jumping in full with all of this imagery and design thought. And of course, so did with the recent trip, city staff and the chamber staff jumped in just as we are all at the same time. So we're excited to at some point share all the pictures and the stories so we can see how staff and the chamber sees things.
So through a process like this, we found it really important and successful to determine together what the project goals are. What is the vision for the project? And then, that's been vetted with city staff, with stakeholders here today. We'd like to get your eyes on it. But this is kind of our master vision and goal check as we move through this design phase. As things kind of evolve as they will, if this check, are we still meeting the vision as we progress? And so with that, and I won't read all of it, but, you know, fulfilling the master plan's vision for Front Street, creating this public plaza that we're talking about, creating a better user experience that's comfortable and safe, supporting the economic vitality. We know it's the major driver for this community. And then infrastructure and operational deficiencies, looking at that, and making sure that we're through this process, making that function even better. And it's looking at pavement, utilities, street lighting, power, thinking about snow removal, the pavement, as mentioned, improved pedestrian amenities and spaces, and then within the area, there's, you know, a couple, there's even more focused special areas that we'll deep dive into a little bit today, the Royal Lady Plaza and Front Street Park, and how that is incorporated into the overall design. Hopefully you guys can see that okay, and that's a little pale, but this is in red is the project extents for this design phase. And like I said, I know it's a little bit hard to see, but even though within red is essentially, you know, the ask for us to look at through the design phase, we're intentionally zoomed out because we're always looking at the overall context of a project and looking at how it relates to these other connections, Highway 2, Commercial Street, the waterfront park. So even though we do get, you know, zoomed into this, and as I mentioned, some highlighted areas like Royal Plaza, Front Street Park, we're looking at that overall context. Specifically in the green here, that is the road, Front Street, that has been shut down, goes down to vehicular access. We'll be maintaining that closure with this effort and improving it. And then the area in blue is the roadway that will still function as, you know, vehicular access with improvements to it, including 10th Street and 8th Street. And then I just want to point out that that also includes the Front Street Park, and then here for the Plaza location.
Question for this one? Yes, Jim.
I was just wondering, maybe I'm a page ahead of you here. The fire lane, I wonder what the plan is for it and for fire trucks, getting people out of buildings if there's something going on there.
Yeah, so that is definitely part of all the issues and considerations that we're tackling with this effort. As we mentioned, you know, we're not changing with this, just kind of the overall functionality of how it's acting as it's supposed now. But we are looking at how the bollards and the barricades could be potentially better operated and improved for access, emergency access. And then the other point that, and I don't have a visual to share with you today on this, but internally in our office, we have a map with literally a fire lane drawn on it, where it won't look like your typical road fire lane, but it's a clear zone that, you know, any other nodes or seating, that sort of thing, will stay clear of that. So you have that open access.
That's a priority in the design.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah. Yeah,
So-
that's actually the basis of design for us, is that fire access.
So Holly, I was gonna ask you, before, maybe you're gonna get to this anyway, so I can wait till then. So deliveries, commercial deliveries, is that something you're gonna address later in the presentation? How are you gonna work that in, or how's that gonna be affected by the, because I take it the plaza is gonna be closed to that, right?
It'll still operate with those hours where delivery can come in, chamber event trucks can come, emergency staff or fire or paramedics have access in. So the way it's operated today for all the vehicular types that are allowed to be in that space will continue.
Okay,
We're gonna try to refine and make more feasible and usable where it's closed with bollards to make that as operationally efficient as it can be for the city.
And we know how important that is, that it continues to operate like that and potentially even better.
Right.
Talking to the business owners at the event that we had earlier in the year, helped us. I mean, we already knew how important it was, but it helped us understand the nuances of it, just talking to business owners one-on-one. And that's in our scope to continue to have those conversations. Yeah. Because we know that that's
Right,
imperative. to
Part of the deal.
this.
We're gonna speak to Royal Lady Plaza Design with that idea in mind about deliveries.
okay,
Share that.
Yeah, and to that point, you know, this is just a visualization of how important it is that it continues to operate the way that it does, and even better to provide flexibility for all the programming and events and operational needs, all your. And then as mentioned, and just hit it really hard that our understanding is that we know that the economic needs for the city is so important and such a driver for downtown. That, as I mentioned, we'll have those constant conversations with business owners. And then, yeah, to your point, just how important circulation is. We love that there's live cameras on our projects that we're designing. That doesn't happen every day. And so we spend a lot of time in watching the movement out there throughout morning, deliveries, you know, evenings, event setup. And so we're just, you know, constantly thinking about the needs for emergency access and just the needs for the cross circulation.
And just seeing how pedestrians use it.
right,
It's fascinating to watch. We call each other up and we're sending pictures of snapshots from the cam.
Yeah.
Try to document them.
Yeah.
So I'm going to, as a little discussion, focus on the master plan, which its context is Mittenwald and other Bavarian communities, but in particular, Leavenworth's Front Street is equivalent to Mittenwald's Overmarket or their Plaza Pedestrian Street, which is really what Front Street is. It's both a promenade because of its linear length, and it's also a plaza of just how people move through the space. And in this particular picture, there's the highlight of their famous violin makers and having a statue in celebration of it, which is one key aspect as we're looking at the plaza design. How can we accent the story? There's many stories of community and places of note where people can have pauses of reflection, information, excitement, you know, take a look at this sort of, which we have already a lot of components. We want to expand on that. Successful plazas are all about edges and landmarks, and you have that for the most part already, but there's certain areas that need a little bit more support. I know one of which is crossing out of the studio, parking lot, and maybe doing some amenities along. So those sorts of edges we're looking at all along the border just to help define, which will help the feeling of the plaza space. And all of that will then just really help in a more engaging pedestrian experience. And of course, shops are very, very key and important. And what I wanted to point out here, and I still haven't had a discussion, those who went to the area recently, because I really wanted to find out what everybody was thinking and feeling as they looked at things. But the materiality of the pavement is very, 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 the more you look at Bavaria, it's just all sorts of materials, because over hundreds of years, right, there's this piecemeal kind of organic is what I was looking for, kind of sets of improvements for it. But what it really has created then is this rich layer of textures of which, You can have, you know, your eateries or shops filling out, all these sorts of things, and create a level of variation, much like all the fenestration along all the storefronts. I can't pronounce the name, but for all the scroll artwork and, you can try that sort of thing. And then one key piece to it, again, is we watch people on the cams and how they move through the spaces. We want to have things that augment the shops, that help highlight how people move through the space. Because one of the fun parts is just the meandering around, the exploration. And we want to build upon that. So this is just highlighting and involve, you know, history and culture you already have an artifact, much like this right up 10. You know, sculpture, again, varied pavement and other elements, modern sculpture, whatever those might be, you have variations of that today. But it's an integral kind of pedestrian friendly, pedestrian scale sets of elements that just make the experience as rich as all the architecture and all the merchandise in the storefronts along Front Street.
Yeah, actually, before we move on, we dive into these other two areas, those images that Paul walked through, it's just you know, showing that quality of element that we're, you know, looking for this project, that helps translate it from what everybody knows as a road today to this pedestrian plaza. So you'll see lots more pictures like that, and then it was even, you know, Andy shared some of her pictures from her Bavarian trip, and you'll see that it marries much what we had, you know, anticipated, and showing this presentation. That said, we're gonna walk through a couple focused areas within the plaza. Royal Lady Plaza, which was identified in the downtown master plan, that location. And then the Front Street Park, which really is an extension of this, will be an extension of the pedestrian plaza. And we can speak more to that. So walk through the Royal Lady Plaza portion of it first. So this is the image, you all have probably seen it, but from the downtown master plan, and we just found that it was such a beautiful illustration and vision of you know, what the space could be. It is, you know, before the idea of the road being closed down, so you see the curve along here still, but it gives that kind of unique, intimate space that, you know, think is appropriate at this location. And then with that, we know that there's been some additional looks at that original vision, still with, you know, road and parking, but looking at kind of taking it to the next level of grading and our operations. And then with the 2023 sketch again, you know, just trying to like truth check the grade changes there and how to deal with that. And so all of that work done really led us to a refined version of this that celebrates the Royal Lady Plazas and the Autumn League Festival. We understand that there's some money set aside to also give homage to Bob and Ted. Did I say that right? I say, okay. Yeah, I always want to say Bill and Ted.
You had an excellent adventure.
Party on, dude.
You know, their contribution to
Excellent.
to the transformation of downtown. And then the hint to the Alpine look is appropriate here for landscaping and that elements. And then just, you know, digging into the reality of the space with the, as I mentioned, the grade change, the needs for ADA access to the lower buildings, emergency access, delivery access, you know, the seating that's outside of the motion house. And so really kind of giving some post look to that. And I just love this picture. It's so beautiful, and it really frames that view that you see down Front Street to the Tannenbaum building. And then, celebrating the newly refurbished Glockenspiel that, that centerpiece that draws people down to this part of that street. With that, we come up with this concept, taking in all the work that's already been done, refining it, checking it for grades and drainage and all of that. But one day we were out on site and we're standing there listening to the music and watching the Glockenspiel, and we saw a couple that were so excited about it, they wanted to dance, but they had to do it over here because that was the only flat space to do that. And so it really confirmed what we were envisioning for the space, that you have this flat area landing spot right underneath the Glockenspiel to give for those opportunities of dancing and excitement about that. And then providing much needed ADA access around the space. And then I'm just getting into this now. This is kind of the next layer of design, but looking for opportunities where we can incorporate our public art, statues, that sort of thing that celebrate the Royal Ladies, the Autumn Leaf Festival, and other just great history nuggets and celebrations about around town. And I will say that this is one opportunity to do that. We'll be looking at opportunities all throughout the Plaza space to incorporate that.
And going back to deliveries, is it a matter of taste? I forgot, yes.
Yeah.
So we talked to the property owners at the business engagement, and they were telling us the need to be able to get deliveries to their doorway, get them in there. So one of the push and pull things we had was how far should the new sidewalk zone be? And we've made it not twice as wide, but just about, so that a vehicle can come in to do the deliveries along the bottom there. It's also then wide enough for emergency access. We haven't demarcated that in such a way, but we need the flexibility for vehicular access. So that kind of sets the footprint of the toe of the slope going up. And then I guess a couple other things to add, there would be seating, there'd be inlays, other artistic elements, interpretive signs, whatever we all agree to is the best way to pay homage to the royal ladies and the history there.
I'm safe, I'm watching, there's still a lot to get through, so I'll move through this a little bit quicker, but so this is a plan view of that concept. We can revisit this if we have time, we want to sit on this a little bit longer, but just giving that nice kind of flat space in the center that I mentioned, and then points, areas around there for the art and some of that greenscape that's so needed in the area, and then nice wide stairways for not only movement through the site, but then some of that impromptu seating for people watching. And then we're getting hint to seating kind of internally too. So that's going to be really needed throughout the space.
Any thoughts? Yes, Sharon.
What makes it a Royal Lady Plaza?
That's a good question. And we are continuing, as you know, Sharon, to try to understand what makes a royal lady and the history of that. And I think that's a continued conversation with the community of, how is that reflected in these elements that we put to. But as a royal lady, we'd love to hear your thoughts.
Well, I was thinking it might be nice for those that are local here now and still alive to maybe have a meeting with a few of the royal ladies and see what ideas they would come up with.
I think that's a great idea.
That
Yeah,
is.
we would love that. Yeah.
The Autumn Leaf Festival Association was present at their presentation to the last year,
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's not the same as.
the royal ladies themselves. Understood. This may be more of an in the weeds consideration. I realize the needs of today might not be the needs of the downtown area in perpetuity, but as I think about what happens on weekends in the summertime, on busy weekends, specifically with the Moochin House, you will see the lines there snake up and on into
The next beer garden.
Yes,
The next-
Like a
exactly.
sausage garden.
So I'm wondering how, as we're looking at the aesthetics of this, and it's beautiful, by the way, how you envision that being incorporated into it?
Yeah, we have been giving some thought to that. I think part of the response is, as I mentioned, you know, some of these other little more informal places to sit and spend time, and then also actually just being out on this portion of the site earlier, just an hour or so ago, it's shaded. So that's great about this spot, and it's going to be, people are going to be attracted to this location for that opportunity. And then it just continuing to work with the business owners down here to better understand what ultimately they want proceeding out there, what would work for them. And that, to be honest, that's a continued conversation that we, that we need to look into.
And they've seen these images and there's already a cooperation. I mean, they desire to have this.
Yeah.
Lady Plaza, so that sweet spot, we need to get into a little bit more of an understanding of the programming that's for their seating, and then we can do layouts for that. But this footprint that we're showing here, this is our current understanding of all the needs around our concluding ADA. And we need to get into the details around how we represent Basque Royal Lady and then also Bottom Head.
I know you've done outreach and these stacks are beautiful. I was just curious. So.
And I can say too, just even separate from this project, is something that Megan and I have talked about on busy weekends, how those lines do stack up and it inhibits flow on sidewalks. So we're looking into what we can do. Well, just to kind of delineate those lines and have them.
I feel like, 2025 lines, like you see all these kiosks, like at Costco, like you go up, you order at the kiosk and you don't have these huge lines, like feel like businesses can, get up to speed with technology to reduce line congestion, but that's just my opinion.
But it is something that we need to test,
Right.
and continue to go through. So that's something that has, that is part of our design consideration for that we want to make sure that all functions properly there. Then I'm gonna switch gears, unless there's more comments, questions about the road Plaza design. We'll switch gears and talk about street parking.
So there's a lot of considerations with the park, and I think that probably everybody has seen all these considerations over time. I'm not gonna focus on the list, but just more of the images of some of the things that we've been looking at. Of course, there's the winter activities and the lighting, there's the consequences of some of the activities in October, and then later on during the sledding that are detrimental to the lawn area. We also recognize that the summer solace of having a little bit of green space is always inviting in a more informal way, where some of these other activities are larger events. And then trees are a huge part of the downtown park and downtown on Front Street. So looking at the health of all those trees, we've done research on. And I'm gonna, there's like 5 or 6 slides here. So there's the large planned events, Oktoberfest, the art in the market, like art in the park, sorry. And then I think this was winter time for the Alcorns, yeah, I suppose.
What's that?
Ice Fest. But that happens 4 times a year with the Alcorns. They will, yeah. All they do that, but more frequent than. Again, the tree health is huge, but also the need for shade, for seeding is huge. And then making sure, one event that operates and loves to be in that particular space, if there's more room for expansion or on the pavement and stuff, particularly towards the hillside. We're looking at all the little things. At the gazebo, looking at how the big events interface with the gazebo and if there's deficiencies or limitations on those larger event uses with the interface of this. We're looking also at the perimeter too, right, on all sides, as Holly had mentioned. So the sidewalk along US two is always got visitors along it. And some are scrambling down the hillside. They could take a night nap with the restrooms, right? Part of them are coming up for, taking pictures, selfies and family photos in front of the sign. But what are these connections that we talked about earlier to make it easier to enter into the park? And we just decided to put this one big picture up because I would just really love this picture. For all the massive events, right, that happen all year long that the chamber puts on and the other groups, there's something that's so special about this park area that's in grass during the summertime and the fall time, right, in the early spring. And that kind of sets up, again, the recognition that we have to look at this seasonally. There's 4 seasons, and this is kind of precursor, not the outreach discussion.
So yeah, as Paul mentioned, then that segues us into the most recent event that we've had to point with public, which is the community engagement night. And with all these things, forefront of our minds, and then also just giving them an update like we are with you all today is, what the project is, what is the vision, and then knowing, how important all the operational considerations of Front Street Park are, and that's gonna be kind of our toughest nut to crack, maybe. Taking the opportunity to talk to the public about their thoughts about that. So in addition to the kind of status update information that we have there, we have an opportunity for folks to give their preference. So top 3, we handed out stickers, 3 stickers, and they could weigh in on kind of their top 3 uses in the park. And this wasn't to, get them to vote on what we want to, they want to see here, but more just getting a pulse check of, as Paul mentioned, this need for the park to be this well-oiled, machine of all 4 seasons, all the events, and how we can tackle that, with some of these needs. So the snow play area is one of them, and then we introduced the idea of ice skating to just kind of test to see if there's any interest, if something else that would be that winter play element. And then the terrace, a picture of terrace lawn in seating, which would be, would be different than the sledding or the snow hill, open lawn and picnic space, and then pool features, shade and water. So again, it was just kind of a pulse check to see what is really, important to the preferences to folks when checking on this. And then we also did an online survey. So that started the night of the engagement, and we actually just closed that survey down on Friday. So with the results kind of the same, they had the same opportunity to weigh in their top 3 preferences, but then also just some opening questions to see how people feel about the project. I don't have the results to share quite today on any slides, but we had some good input on just under 300 total people that signed in and gave input. And the interesting kind of takeaway from this is we thought that the snow play area and the ice skating would be kind of that, those kind of passionate response that we get from people. And really the terrace lawn seating and the open lawn and the cooling features are shown to be the preferences for for the folks that at least weighed in at this point. So it was good to kind of pulse check to give all of us some thought on how we want to move forward. And then I think, continued conversations about it. And then, as I mentioned, that we're going to receive open comments about the project, and as designers, if
That's
we
good,
want to
great thought.
put them into buckets on how we respond to those within a design response. So, we had something put on accessibility, events and programming, site amenities, placemaking, and these are just, we have a whole, pages and pages that we'll share with the Andy and team of these comments, but really the number one theme that we heard was people are just really excited about this project. And so just as excited as we are. So yeah, we had some good input. And then the next public stakeholder input that we're having to dig into is, the city staff and the chamber that just went on tour of different Bavarian cities. We can't wait to hear more about the thoughts and the takeaways from that visit. And as I mentioned, that really what we've heard and seen so far really confirmed, kind of what our initial vision was for the space. Yeah, that's part of the next step is to just dig into, staff's insight now. We gave them homework to take lots of pictures for us and even a list of things to look at down to, drainage and bollards and that sort of thing. So with that, moving to next steps, we are excited to hear your thoughts today and incorporate that into moving forward. We have a couple more touch points with the downtown steering committee. We're looking at, it's going to be the community block party in August, and we continue to move through the design. We will have another touch point with yourselves, council, with some more design concepts for you to be able to respond to. But it was really important for us today to just get you up to speed, understand all the considerations that we're putting into the needs of this site, and just check in to make sure we're on the right track. So we left you some time for questions and comments. Thanks for bearing with us.
We can go back to any slide and talk about any topic that you might have interest in discussing.
So Paul, I guess one question I'd have is, what is so much this function as far as you're designing the overall, plan here? Are you addressing anything about the underground facilities and how that has to work?
We have a full survey map and we've done investigation on all the underground utilities. So we have that map available. We've done full geotechnical reports, which is going to be the basis for pavement design and storm drainage. And we have kind of pencil sketches, layouts of how we could take away the curb and then still create areas to drain the pavement area for a plaza, which we've done on many other sites. So everything underground is for us as important as everything above ground. We haven't done a full search of every single erratic that might be under the ground. We did, if you've not seen the historic pictures of the giant rock right there at Royal Lady Plaza, that's why the road turns. We just.
It's no longer there.
Yeah, part of it is still under the ground there, but yeah, so does that answer your questions?
Well, so in your function, do you give a cost estimate of what it's going to cost to do that?
Yeah, we will do full cost estimating, and that probably will also instantly look at phasing and so forth, depending on the overall set of improvements that are from Hughes to all the way to Division Street, and might include some level of enhancements on 8th and 10th. 10th is really getting sidewalks in all the way to commercial. 8th is more getting us to Edelweiss Way, but maybe still some enhancements all the way to commercial. So Once we start to pencil all that out and we get some of the details and so forth, like from the trip, then we're gonna take all the technical research and vet that through our drawings that we have. Make sure things are working out. We don't want to put street light poles, we're gonna put a pipe underground sort of thing. So we're looking at that three-dimensionally. And then we go into preliminary estimates, which we do on all of our large capital projects. And then from there, we might instantly even start to phase it depending on where those numbers are at. We also will have to show a range of type of improvement, let's say, you know, if like the pavements might be varied, so it might be more this type than that type, and there might be cost differential, that sort of thing. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess, so what you're gonna deal with is not only, so that's gonna deal with sewer and electrical conduits and all that, I mean, that's part of the whole plan?
Oh, that's a good question. So this, at 10% design, it's really a horizontal layout, but we've done underground research. We're going to be locating everything from streetlight poles, where the fire lane is, where the different types of pavement are, delineating where the plows go, where the shoveling goes, what's heated, what's not heated. There's got to be probably variations to that, unless we can find that sweet spot. And we'll be doing a capital level set of estimates for that, because we're still not at final design. We have to go through these all those sorts of hoops to get a more detailed, accurate estimate. But at a planning level, it'll be more than accurate for the range of actual value of construction costs.
Okay,
Yeah, and really that process is to test that vision too, as far as like, you know, what are the high level costs that we're looking at? And is that something that you move forward with in phases, or do you do any, you know, modifications to that design to make it, you know, more budget friendly? That's kind of the point that we'll be at the end of this process, is then, you know, testing that vision, putting a high level cost to it, and then deciding how to move forward.
so the 10% actually doesn't cover that other, like, goes down too deep is what I probably.
We won't be designing like stormwater lines at
Okay.
this point. We're just identifying the criteria around stormwater needs for the project. And we're also looking where existing utilities are to see what could be utilized or what would need to be new or upgraded. So there's like a 3D kind of puzzle underground, and we have to figure out that whole story. But we have all the basic research completed. And I just want to add that aside from the technical stuff, there's still all the operational needs, not just the fire lane, but the chamber setups for events, right? All of those operational events that any particular group does or grade that goes through it, making sure that all that is vetted with the design concept.
Okay,
And the eateries and the business, like what you have out there today, we're gonna give essentially the same version, but with these new elements, and we just want to make sure it's still going to be operationally efficient, feasible.
okay.
For all parties. Good question, thank you.
Yeah,
Any other questions or thoughts?
Other questions?
As I take a look at the public engagement, I'm really taken with how even it is with terraced lawn and open lawn right there. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm kind of taking that as terraced, no terrace, right? I mean, open lawn or terraced, or am I processing that incorrect?
So there's a couple different ways to look at it. So that is one way, right? So if we do move forward with the terraced concept, then there's less of that slope, you know, either none or less of that slope to go to the snow way. The other thing that as designers, our takeaway from that is the need for seating and shade. And that can be translated and, you know, addressed in the whole site too. So not just there. So that's what's kind of nice about the input that we've received, or feedback that we've received, is it's more of not like okay, now we're picking this element, we're gonna be incorporating into the park. But really, you know, I checked with people so far with this process, this engagement. We're seeing that there's such a need and want for that seating, shade, cooling elements. Maybe even more so than that winter play. At least that's forefront of people's minds.
And one layer in there that really helps with that idea is if it's terraced, which a lot of people really got excited because of the seating. It also allows us new planting spaces for trees, because some of there's definitely going to be an evolution, right, for the tree health out there. So we can get new trees in, as the other ones go to the end of their life. And we have all that arbors for it. So we're looking at it, people want shade, they want seating. They need canopies for that shade unless we bring in some other element. And then there's the festival lights. So there's all these multiple things we're looking at all at the same time, plus access in there, you know, even on the wet soggy days, things like that.
Sure.
Good question.
Anyone else? Yeah, I guess I'd ask, what is the status on the trees? What is the overall concept or overall idea have you got that obviously some of them are in trouble? And
Yeah.
then some of them are gonna have got another 3 or 5 years yet, that kind of thing.
Yeah, there's ones that are obviously, you know, that are sick and don't have a lot left. There's some that the arborist, you know, identified as in medium to good health and still probably have, but regardless, we definitely as Paul need to be looking at, you know, a succession plan for these trees. So, you know, we're probably a few years out until construction, right? So then that's a few more years if these
Right.
trees are out there. And then construction can be hard on trees too. You know, there's ways to mitigate that, but
It's gonna have an impact.
provides, you know, an impact on trees. So we've already had a lot of great discussion with the teams and staff and our own on like, what is the plan for no matter what the health of the existing trees are to get new trees in kind of as quickly and as big as we can, you know, at the time, but then also other considerations for immediate shade out there, and that could be in the form of you know, shade structures, that sort of thing. So looking at it kind of a holistic approach to providing especially the shade out there, and then as Paul mentioned too, a sport to put lighting on, because we know that's such a, you know, big part of the ambiance of the site. And so, and that also can be a combination of existing trees to remain, new trees, and then, you know, potential new structures on the site that can be, you know, provide festival lighting as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep, so sure.
I was just thinking that maybe the concept of the trees can change so that there's a lot of Christmas trees with lights on, little ones like, you know, you have in your house are a little bit taller and because it looks like the big guys are in bad trouble.
Yeah.
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 And everybody loved that one, you know, the one big guy with the lights are on all the time, but the arborist talked about there are places that have like trees that are enormous, but it's quite costly to bring them someplace and put them out.
Yeah, and that's something definitely to look into. They are costly, and then also they don't adapt to the new space as well. So sometimes it's better to go with a smaller tree and just kind of let it take its time to grow in place. We've also started talking just about, you know, are there opportunities to actually start growing trees now off-site that then could be, you know, during construction, based on site. So we're already starting to come up with some strategies for what that succession looks like to get trees in as big as, you know, as we can, but thinking long-term health for them as well.
Yeah, are you talking also about the trees that are along, you know, on the, if you, as you're walking up the sidewalk, the trees are up on the hillside at the top?
Along US, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that was.
I guess I wanted to ask you, you had a session with the Public Works staff. So what did you get from that takeaway? What was their concerns? What were their issues? Is that,
Well, I said that's a lot. Yeah, I mean, I'll start off by saying that, you know, we've talked a lot about, as I mentioned, you know, we've had maintenance, part of that conversation. So just, you know, considering, the long, as I mentioned, the trees, but even with the site, the longevity of, you know, if we bring in, change the pavement to pavers, for example, you know, what does that look like as far as, you know, cost, durability, snow removal, heated pavements, you know, if there is an opportunity for that, where is that? So those are a lot of the conversations that we're having as far as kind of those operational needs.
right?
That, you know, as I hope that we've stressed, you know, the importance today on our minds, it's just that just making this a successful, very operational, flexible, you know, site when the ribbon's cut. And so that's, yeah, kind of driving a lot of our conversations for the city zone.
And the focus on the park really just shows the complexity of how that park changes through a year
Mhm.
and the different levels of operational need, maintenance need. So what's the right balance point? You're already operating in a certain way that could be measured as a successful way, but are there ways we can make that easier or less impact on the park, or, and hence the preference surveys trying to find it, is everybody attached to something, and actually, they're just going back to the basics of, it would be nice to be able to go out there under shade, and have some cooling, you know, just what most people want on a nice hot day here in Leavenworth, right? And you could see that with every visitor today, is where they're sitting under the trees and so forth, so we want to enhance that aspect of it, particularly within the park space, because that's where the most opportunity is.
Anything else, Andy, that you can think of as far as parts with public works specific? And we talked a lot about, you know, the function of the bollards and barricades, and just making that more efficient to manage.
Yeah, absolutely. So the bollards were a good conversation we talked about. But really just letting the public works team share what their current challenges are downtown with maintenance. Also with Front Street Park and having replant all of the grass there every year. I mean, honestly, some of the terms they use is like, embarrassment, and, they specifically talked about the impact to morale, where they put a lot of work into the downtown. But in the condition it's in right now, they're not proud of it. So, yeah, did not expect that as something to come up in a morale survey that we did, but, anyway, so just like Holly said, having something that's long-term maintainable is really important. And some of the things that are done downtown, like for example, there's areas where we have really thin paver tiles and they pop out and aren't easily put back in. Those types of things are things that we're looking to avoid in the future. The differential settlement, the trip and fall things that we get from those, like all of those kinds of things. Again, we've met a ton, so I don't remember everything.
Right,
That's some of the high level items I know the team shared.
And we design public works capital projects for, I think it's about 60 different cities and counties. And, you know, we understand public works quality design, that's what we design. And wanting to make it as operational and as maintainable as possible. So any investment enhances the overall place, in terms of invitation for people coming here, they get this whole nother layer of experience and supporting all of the businesses and not having any liability about, you know, we shouldn't have gone like a little bit less on that. We need to do it at a quality that things will hold out. We like to design timeless projects and we have a timeless town here. So we want to make sure the infrastructure of the plaza is going to hold for a long time to put that investment.
Thanks.
Well, thank you.
Anybody else?
I appreciate all the work you guys are putting into it and all the details. It's not like,
Yeah.
to me, it's not like a usual, company that's doing something in town. You guys seem to be almost a part of it.
Yeah, like Paul said, we're having fun and we appreciate, you know, all of the conversations we've had. It's not about the city and council members and community. It is, so we're excited to continue those conversations.
Great.
Thank you guys.
Appreciate
you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Look forward to the next steps.
This second time up, do you want to say what's going on so we know about this?
Oh, so you're wondering about the sirens. Allegedly, nothing confirmed yet, but all the Facebook groups are saying that there's an active brush fire up the Tumwater on milepost 98, about a quarter acre.
That makes sense.
And-
They've all been fire chiefs.
Yeah, they've all been fire trucks.
No
Yeah.
shortage of sirens these days.
No.
Yeah,
No.
so
Okay,
Thanks, Clint.
Yeah.
Maybe they found that guy.
back to you.
I can't figure out where my
That's
poles
what
are,
I
I'm
was
just
just-
sharing screen.
All right.
Sorry, I'm just.
Oh, see the little break-ins?
Yeah, corner to corner. So where's my tool box? Over here? Oh, it's hidden behind all this stuff.
Anything else for the good of the order before we take a break? Not hearing anything? So let's give ourselves a break and be back for a regular meeting at 7.